Dear listener, in this episode I talk with Colin Wright. Colin is an author, blogger, entrepreneur, and traveler. His 3 words are optimism, relativism, and perspectives. He shares everything he learns while traveling the world, meet different cultures and people. He pushes his knowledge out to a wide audience with his books. I've read 2 of those books called Considerations and Act Accordingly. I really recommend you read those to get a new and fresh perspective on life. Let's dive into the interview. Colin, thank you for your time. Welcome on Tools Talk, the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My personal story with you is I came across you while I was searching online for minimalism and reading the minimalists. And I also read a book that you published very recently, Considerations. And I thought it was fantastic. I got a lot of inspiration out of it. So I also want to thank you for that. And I want to start the interview right now. You can still hear me?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, thanks. Okay, my first question is, what do you say if someone asks, "What do you do?"
Oh, it really depends on the person and where I'm at, but generally something along the lines of that I'm an author, entrepreneur, and full-time traveler, and I move to a new country every 4 months or so, based on the votes of my readers. My blog readers, and then I make my living off of my books, and I'm the co-founder of a publishing company called Asymmetrical Press.
Okay, thanks. That's a lot, and I really like you as a writer, and you have like a public press with Joshua and Ryan from The Minimalist, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. One sentence, one quote from your book that really struck me was, live your life and allow your goals and priorities to grow as you grow. Otherwise, you may find yourself spending all your time running toward a finish line you have no interest in crossing for no better reason than you told yourself you would cross it someday. What's your goal at this moment? And do you implement it? Do you use tools to use those goals, systems, or habits?
Yeah, well, sort of. I don't have as many habits as I used to. I've moved into kind of a broader scale type of thing where there's a lot of things I hope to achieve, but the way in which I get there I'm very flexible with because of the nature of my lifestyle and all the traveling and such. But I do have my main goal is to continue to grow and develop as a person, and to every year be happier and healthier and able to do the work that I enjoy, surrounded by people that I like and people who inspire me, and being able to continue to learn and to take in new information, have new experiences, and see the world from different perspectives. So it's kind of a broad thing, but they all fit together pretty well, all of those ambitions. And to get to that point, it's basically a matter of finding work that I love, and I love writing. I love being able to write fiction and nonfiction and kind of whatever comes to mind, and work with people that I really care about and people who I really respect, like Josh and Ryan and the authors that we publish. And essentially to make that work, there have been some systems and things put in place just to make sure that, for example, I'm not overwhelmed by the amount of email I get every day, or overwhelmed by the process of publishing a book even, which when I started doing that like 5 years ago, took forever. And now I can focus on the writing, and the process of publishing doesn't take very long at all. So over time, I've developed a lot of those things, even if it's not maybe the life hacky type of Pomodoro principle or 80-20 or anything necessarily strict like that. There's a whole lot of learning and over time kind of developing processes based on that learning.
Okay, so really simplifying the processes you didn't want to spend time on, or
Yeah, exactly. And identifying basically which parts I enjoy. I really enjoy the writing, even the publishing and the designing of the cover and formatting and things. I really enjoy that. But I don't like marketing, for example. I'm so bored by it most of the time. So figuring out ways that I can market and still sell books and make people aware of it without bugging them, and being able to sell my work and make a living in ways that I find to be ethically okay, and in a way that I don't feel douchey for for doing it, because I hate it when people oversell to me or use pop-ups, or there's certain things that bug me. So figuring out a way that I can do that, for example, without doing the things that I feel like I would be annoying other people with. That's a huge part of the process, and that's something that unfortunately you can't systematize it and then share that necessarily, because it's different for everyone. But putting in the work and keeping track of what works and what doesn't work, over time you can't help but get better at it and get more concise and faster with your process.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. How would you define success?
Oh, for me, it's being happy and happier every day, if possible, and doing work that I find to be challenging and rewarding, and surrounding myself with good people. So, I mean, again, there's a lot to that, but for me, it's the type of thing that when I'm not successful and I'm not doing those things, I can definitely feel it, and it means that it's time to recalibrate and refocus on those things that I know make me happy and help me grow, and to look in on that too every once in a while and say, is this still what you need to be doing? Is this still the type of work that makes you happy, and the people that make you happy, and the lifestyle that makes you happy? And in a lot of cases, every once in a while, there's something that I'll change on a fundamental level that then, I'll try out and see if that does make me happier more frequently, and then completely reshuffle everything as a result of that.
Yeah. So the writing is really something that makes you happy.
Oh yeah.
And the traveling, I think, and the freedom it brings.
Oh my God, yes.
Those two things combined. Okay. And when you're not happy, when you're in a really big funk, what do you do to get out of that?
It doesn't happen super often, but when it does, I find that the hard part is identifying it, of course, because when you're feeling down, you don't rationally think, oh, maybe there's a reason. Maybe I have low blood sugar and I need to eat something or whatever. You think, man, today sucks. So you kind of go into the funk immediately. But when I have the state of mind to pull myself out of it, I basically step back and say, wow, I get to live this life. I get to do these things. I get to have these wonderful people. I get to go these different places. I have just such amazing opportunities, and a lot of it was just handed to me. But then the other things too, that when I work, I get even more out of that. And the combination of those things, when I stop to acknowledge them, I never fails to put a smile on my face, and tends to pull me out of that mood, so that then I can think, well, okay, what am I doing that's actually putting me in this funk? Maybe let's go eat something. Let's get that blood sugar back up, something along those lines.
Okay, so really the gratefulness of the life and the people that are among you.
Yeah, and I think everybody has something. That's what it is for me. But I think everybody has something in their life that if they stop to acknowledge it and say, here's this thing in my life, then it will put a smile on their face. Everybody has something. So have that, in your pocket as a tool to take out when you need it. And then it's much easier to get away from those, slightly depressed moments.
Yeah. Glad you used the word tool. It's tool stop, right? Do you use tools to exercise?
Not usually. I mean, if it depends on where I'm at, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to carry workout equipment or anything from country to country. It's just obviously heavy usually, and I never know what I'm going to need, or lifestyle wise, if I'm in a place where I'm walking a lot, for example, then I don't necessarily need certain types of equipment. So I have kind of a routine that I do. It's all body weight resistance, so a lot of push-ups and crunches and squats and burpees and things like that. Things that I can do anywhere, no matter where I move, without having to carry any equipment or even have gym clothes.
Okay, so no technical apps or something you use to track exercises.
No, no. I find that kind of depresses me actually. Like for some people, I think it really, really works. But if I don't work out, I feel kind of sluggish and I don't feel as well as I usually feel. So I always work out every day. I do something, and usually, particularly when I'm writing or involved in some type of work that's a little bit longer duration like that, then I'll break it up in every half hour or something. I'll get up and do some push-ups, or I'll do some type of exercise every 30 minutes or so throughout the day. Um, but trying to keep track of it like with an alarm or something, it's been about 5 years since I've set an alarm regularly, and so alarms actually scare the hell out of me. If I set one, and my phone like never rings too, because people very seldom have my phone number. So like when my phone does anything like that, like if it starts yelling at me and tells me to work out, I'll have a very bad association with working out. Whereas right now, I know that it makes me feel good and makes me feel good about myself, and so I just kind of fit it in whenever it makes sense, whenever it feels like I haven't stood up for a while.
Okay, so your phone is not ringing and not ringing a lot, but how do you keep in contact? How do you keep in contact with your friends and your family?
Mostly online these days.
Okay,
My phone primarily is for friends that I've made within the country that I happen to be in at the time, and I swap out SIM cards every time I move, so it's a different phone number every time. And so when I come back to the US, people will be very surprised and not know who I am at first because I have their number, but they don't have mine. So there's very few people, though, in any given place that have my number, and usually we just text. So it's kind of
okay,
not so time sensitive, which I like, because that way neither one of us is forcing our schedule on the other person. But I use that. I use WhatsApp for people across countries. I use Skype primarily to talk to people overseas, like family and such. But beyond that, it's mostly just email. I don't really do instant messages or anything. If I have that turned on my computer while I'm trying to work, it's too distracting.
yeah. And besides exercising, do you use tools to meditate?
No, I might if I was getting started today, but I've been doing that kind of thing for a very long time. So at this point, I kind of just take 20 minutes a day and sit and quietly and do nothing. So I guess you could say I use an app. I set a 20-minute timer, but nothing more sophisticated than that. It could be on the oven, or it could be on the microwave, or it could be on my phone. It doesn't really matter as long as I can just kind of space out for 20 minutes.
Okay, so the meditating is a habit right now for you. It's because it became a habit.
Yeah, yeah, and it took
Oh,
years. I've been doing the meditation thing, for lack of a better term for it, for about 6 or 7 years now. So over that amount of time, it's yeah, kind of like the working out thing, where eventually you don't really need a reminder or anything too sophisticated. All you need is something that tells you if you've been doing it long enough, or if you require that, then you can use a clock or a watch, or you could even just count down in your head. But it's better if you don't have to.
okay. What would be your 30-second pitch for meditating for people who never meditated?
It helps you clear your mind, usually, and it won't right away, and it won't solve all your problems, and it won't make you, a guru or a yogi or anything. But for what it does for me is it helps me relax when I need to relax, and it helps me clear clutter in my brain. So I like to do it once a day so that I can get to what's important and remember things I might have forgotten.
Yeah, clearing clutter is very nice.
Yeah, oh, it's really nice. It's hard to go without once you get used to it.
Yeah. And when you talk about creativity, how does creativity work for you?
For me, it's very much based on having a lot of inputs, a lot of stimuli around me. And this is why the travel thing works so well, is because I'm constantly surrounded by
Yeah.
new things and new people and new sounds and smells and tastes and music and everything. The same way that books are. Like I read a lot. I read for several hours a day, at least. Just trying to learn more about more things and see more perspectives and hear more voices with written voices and things. And the more of that I have, the more kind of happy accident connections I just tend to have, and the more ideas I have. And I don't really I've never really struggled to come up with ideas, and I've never had writer's block, and I've never had any trouble being creative in the way that the word is usually used. So I totally attribute that, though, to having a lot of novelty in my life and a lot of new stuff all the time, new experiences and new things constantly.
Wow. Uh, what would be your biggest obstacle in like not meditating, not reading, not writing?
Biggest obstacle in keeping me from those?
Yes.
Um, Generally, I don't have too many obstacles for that. But if I ever do, it's usually because of some big project, like on a book tour or something, where it's several months on the road and, going day to day, a new city every day and having like a couple press things, some interviews, and then giving a talk at night. And it really wears you down and you get very, very tired all the time. And having to be on all the time and very alive and speaking to people and such, it gets so exhausting and you feel very unhealthy. And I really have to force myself to remember to do these things or to find time for them, because otherwise it just seems like there is no time. But when I do, it makes everything better. I get better sleep and I feel less tired and I feel more healthy. So it's definitely worth it. But those are probably the only times that I have any trouble fitting it in sometimes.
Okay, and all those distractions from the time we're living in now, how do you get rid of all those distractions?
It's usually not so much a matter of getting rid of them. It's just prioritizing, because
Okay.
there's a lot of very good distractions, I think, in life. And a lot of people, I think, will say like social media and reading on the internet and things like that are not good for productivity. But I love those things. I find them incredibly useful, and I find a lot of my best knowledge and information and connections through things like Twitter and just reading things on the web. So that for me, those are quote unquote distractions that I've chosen, but I focus on them and I use them in a very specific way. And I only follow people who post things that, help educate me or help me be entertained or whatever. So using things and exposing yourself to things very selectively, I think, is at least what works for me. Like I said, I don't keep instant message windows. I don't keep Skype on all day. I don't keep Facebook Messenger or anything on all day. I don't respond to messages unless they're emergencies, until I can respond to a bunch of them all at once. I batch process, I guess, in that way. But yeah, it's being very careful what you bring into your life in terms of distractions, and then like really getting the most out of the distractions you do choose to have.
Yeah, so the prioritizing for you is a big word.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
And do you use any tools to be more productive or live better?
Yeah, productive wise, I use Hootsuite for my social media things. So that way, as I read all day, every day, I can post the things, I can put them on a queue and they'll post over the course of the next, couple days or weeks. That way I'm not posting everything all at once. It kind of segments them out into a more digestible timeline. I use that. I mean, I have a phone, which I use for things like this too, which has a camera, which is nice. But beyond that, it's nothing too specific. I use Gmail I kind of just label and archive everything. But I have an inbox zero is what they're calling it, I guess, where I keep my inbox empty except for things that I have to do. And then I use that as my to-do list. Nothing else too sophisticated though, really. I mean, just kind of the normal apps and things, the Adobe stuff for work, and the basic social media things for staying in touch with people. I'm trying to see if I have Scrivener I use for books, which saves a hell of a lot of time and creates really beautiful books, and one of probably my favorite pieces of software right now.
Okay.
Evernote sometimes for blogs. Yeah. Beyond that, though, nothing too spectacular. I don't have any like really truly cool tricks with these things. It's just choosing your software and then figuring out how it fits and making sure that it fits, and not using too much, but not using too few. And just like with everything else, being incredibly selective and then really making those work really well for you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And Now I would like to ask you some really short questions. Bit of a roundup. What would you
Okay.
say? Exciting. What would you say to someone who is? What would you say in a short mini guide to someone who is searching for a passion and can't find it?
Go do more things. Go try a lot of things. Go into a library and pick up a random book. Go to a community event or meet up with a group of people that you're not familiar with. Listen to music you've never listened to before. Just expose yourself to a lot of new things, because that's the only way to find, new stimuli outside of what you already know. And if you don't have a passion within what you already know, you need to very consciously push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
What would you say to someone who wants to improve their relationships?
Communicate and very clearly, and be brazen about it. Like, actually make it a point to communicate, even when it's uncomfortable or seems rude or whatever. Just make it clear. That way, whatever type of relationship it is, everyone is always on the same page and knows exactly what's going on, and that way you can all make better decisions.
Your short guide for a busy person with a lot of stress.
Work out more, improve your diet, and go through your list of responsibilities and work and figure out what's important to you and what's not, and then change things based on that.
Short guide for a young person who asks what to do with my life, Colin.
I would say to them the same thing as the person without the passion. Like, go expose yourself to a lot of things and try a lot of things, and always be trying and experimenting. And that's the only way that you can know what's good for you, because what's good for me is not good for everybody. Some people would live my life and they'd be like so bored, or they would hate it because it's uncomfortable or stressful to them. And I'm
all those different countries.
Yeah, exactly.
So boring.
I know plenty of people who would hate that, though. They would hate it the way that I do it, at least. And I wouldn't be happy with their lifestyle either. So there's no right or wrong way to live your life. It's just, you really have to be in touch with yourself and figure out what makes you happy and what drives you and what lights a fire under your ass. And then you'll pursue a lot more of that.
Yeah, the fire in the ass. What's your best advice to live healthy?
Don't fall for fads. There's a lot of things that are very trendy and popular all the time in terms of diets and workouts and things, and almost invariably a new one will come along in a year or so, or less than that. The best advice is to try to eat well 80% of the time, and then do whatever the hell the rest of the 20%. That way you don't feel so strangled by your diet, and you don't miss out on some of the delightful, unhealthy things in life. And then work out as regularly as you can, and try to fit it into your lifestyle. Don't kill yourself with that. Don't try to bodybuild if you don't want to be a bodybuilder. But figure out some exercises that you can do throughout the day, and try to exercise at least a little each day. And it really adds up and makes you healthy. It may not make you an athlete, but you'll feel healthy, and that will be the type of thing that encourages you to find maybe more workouts or diet things if you want to do that later.
Yeah, find the exercises that suit you.
Yeah,
and suit your lifestyle.
Your lifestyle, something that's sustainable, that you can keep doing because it doesn't kill you.
Your best advice to live simple?
Focus. And in order to do that, you have to know first what you want so that you can focus on the right things. So really get to know yourself, what makes you happy, what drives you, what type of work you want to do, morally and ethically what you will and won't do, and then use that to guide all of the other things that you do, and focus on those things.
Yeah. I made a course for my audience. It's called in English it's called Minimalize, but then Simplify Your Life in 4 weeks. And the first week you will find out what you want, and then afterwards you will focus and simplify all the things that don't work for all the things you wrote down that you want.
Good. Yeah, it's a good way to start.
I'm really inspired by your way of like traveling and seeing all kinds of cities. And I've been in Brazil in 2011. It's also the place where I read the book Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill, and that really brought a fire in my ass in kinds of personal development, and then I started to read a lot of blogs, and I also came across your blog. So
Nice.
it was really the traveling in combination, with the book, that really changed my life, changed my thinking also. And when I hear you right now, I think, oh, I just want to travel and meet all those new people, but I also have like a really strong feeling to settle and to be with my love and to be in the Netherlands. So how do you cope? How do you cope with that feelings? I have.
Yeah, I don't think that they're in opposition. I think there's plenty of ways that you can travel and experience new things. Like in a lot of cases, people, they don't travel because they like to be on airplanes. They travel because they like to go to new places and try new things and be in an unfamiliar place and learn about unfamiliar people and cultures. And there's ways to do that. You can, travel shorter. You can travel with the people that you want to be with.
Travel together,
You can, yeah, you can travel nearby. It's amazing how many people really want to travel the world, but they don't know anything about their own city or state or country or whatever. They haven't explored their own backyard yet, and there's always plenty to discover just around you. And then reaching out as well and trying to meet new people and trying new foods and things, even within your own city. There's so many people there doing so many interesting things that, to me, that gives me a lot of the same benefits of travel, just to reach out and to explore. And this is part of why like Twitter and Instagram and things are very valuable, because you can look around and see who's around you, who's doing interesting things, and then find a connection. Like, oh, they photographed this type of food. That restaurant looks amazing. This person seems to have really good taste in food. Maybe I'll ask them where I should go, or maybe we can meet up and they can give me recommendations. Things like that I do all the time. And some of the people I've met here in Seattle, actually, just recently, was the result of something like that, where I just saw something that they'd posted online, and I said, hey, that's cool. Do you have any recommendations? And now we've been hanging out, and I've been learning from them, and they've been learning from me. And you can do that anywhere. So that's the type of thing I usually recommend, because so few people seem to do it. Like, it's almost like we look at our home and say, well, there's nothing left for me here. There's nothing interesting here. When in reality, we've only scraped the surface most of the time.
Lovely. Okay, last thing of the show, of the Tools Talk, is the 3 essentials. If you have to pick, what would you choose? Your 3 essential stuff list.
So like physical things or apps or
physical things.
Physical things. Okay. Well, my laptop is wonderful to have. It allows me to do everything.
Me too.
So I have like a little 13-inch MacBook Pro. I've gone without a phone many times, but more and more, the more I do road trips in particular, it's really nice to have a smartphone of some kind that I can switch out the SIM card in, and that I can use social media and connect with people on. So I'll say that as well. Gosh, I mean, I should probably have pants. It's very rude to show up in a new place without pants.
To ride,
but so if that doesn't count, though, I don't know. I'll probably say like a little notebook and a pen, something that I can use to scribble down notes. And I don't write long form usually with freehand with a pen and paper, but I do like to take notes and to work out problems in the books that I write and stuff. Like writing it out and drawing a little tends to help me. So that would be nice to have.
What else do you need right now? Some clothes, food.
Yeah, some clothes. I always like to have my passport, like little things that I try to keep on hand. But beyond that, I mean, I don't really need too much. Most things, if I don't have them, I can get them, or I can borrow them, or rent them, or whatever. So possession-wise, in terms of needing, there's very few things, and everything else is just kind of nice to have.
3 apps?
Well, like I said earlier, Scrivener is wonderful in terms of publishing books. Photoshop is probably the other app that I use most frequently.
Do you design yourself? Your own covers also?
Yeah. My background is in design and illustration, so I hand make most of them and then bring them into the computer and edit them.
Nice.
And recently, it sounds strange because I have 2 apps that I use to listen to things. One, I use Spotify for music, And then I've been using iTunes a lot recently for podcasts, and
Okay.
there's probably a better app for that. But just as a podcast newbie, I've just opened up iTunes and have been listening to podcasts like crazy. So that's a very helpful, handy one to have for me right now.
Your three essential podcasts right now?
Oh, okay. So the one that got me back into listening to podcasts is called 99% Invisible, which is just wonderful.
Wow.
It's about kind of architecture and design. I really like Song Exploder, which is, I think it's a smaller one, but it's very cool. They kind of pull apart music and show you how they build these songs. And then there's a whole lot of others that I really like, but at the moment, actually, the one that I was listening to right before I hopped on this interview, actually, is called Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, where he does these incredibly long, like 4 and 5 hour podcast episodes about a big topic, and so they're like audiobook length podcast episodes about some historical topic that he really covers in great depth and with an excellent thought process behind it all. He doesn't oversimplify.
Okay, nice. Really curious to hear those. 3 books, your essential books.
Oh, let's see. I just finished one called How We Got to Now, which was very, very good. Just in nonfiction in terms of the technologies and social movements that and concepts that got us to the modern age. I read one. This is one I've been trying to recommend to people. I'm looking up so I get the title right. Existence by David Brin. He's one of my favorite science fiction authors. And he wrote this book, I want to say 2012 looks like. Just a very, very interesting take on the idea of aliens arriving at Earth, like what that actually might look like in real life as opposed to, little green men in spaceships. Essentially a book that tricked me several times and made me think it was ending, that I'd reached the eureka moment, but there was like three endings basically, and each of them was just as much of a mind-destroying moment, which is wonderful. And then I just read another book called, I want to say The Innovators by Walter Isaacson, the dude who did the Steve Jobs biography. He wrote a book about the development and invention of the internet and all the technologies that led up to that. So that was really interesting. Learned a whole lot from that.
Sounds good. And any of those books, is that a book you recommended the most to others?
I recommend all of these, yeah. I mean, I'm always reading books one at a time, but I usually kind of fly through them and I read kind of like compulsively. So at any given point, I'm usually really just obsessing over the one that I've just finished. So those were like 3 of the last 4 that I probably read.
Any book that really changed your way of life, your change of thinking?
I think every book does in some way, ideally. If you're reading a book, whether nonfiction or fiction, either you're learning some type of fact or understanding a point in history or a technology or something like that, or with fiction, maybe it gives you a new perspective, allows you to empathize with somebody, takes you out of your own mind and puts you in somebody else's so that you see the world from different perspective, from different shoes, that type of thing. So ideally, whatever you're reading, you're learning something. I kind of feel that I do.
Yeah, I always ask this because one book for me was so immensely changing. So I'm always curious about, is there one book that really changed you or set you on another path or something?
Okay, yeah, not one in particular, but the aggregate of books that I've read have definitely changed me immensely.
You've read a lot of books I saw on Goodreads.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, those, I've only just started using that. Those are just books from the past 6 months or something. I've been a hardcore reader forever. I was the kid at recess in elementary school that they'd have to threaten me with punishment if I don't go play with the other kids because I just want to sit inside and read.
Keep it going, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last one is your 3 music albums, your essentials.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me pull up my Spotify here and see. I've been listening to a whole lot of Laura Marling recently. And so she's got an album called Once I Was an Eagle that's Fantastic. I went back to, let's see, is that the album I want to recommend? Joni Mitchell, old favorite of mine, but she's got an album called Blue. That's fantastic as well. Trying to choose something here. It's hard to choose. It's hard for me to, most albums don't keep me listening all the way through.
Yeah. Hard to simplify music.
Yeah, and I just like variety too. I do like Childish Gambino's had a lot of good stuff, and he's got a great second album and then like a shorter album that just came out. But I really liked his first album, which was called Camp.
So let's call those your three essential albums at the moment.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, man. Now we're almost 40 minutes in. I really would like to thank you for your time. And tell the folks in the Netherlands where they can find you if they want to read your books and your articles.
Sure. My blog is Exile Lifestyle, EXILELIFESTYLE.com. And then all of my work, my books and other projects are at colin.io, COLIN.io. And then if you search for me online, if you just type in my name into Google, it'll usually pop up, just Colin Wright. And on like Twitter and Instagram and such, I'm at Colin is my name. That's my username.
Yeah. Okay. Someone said today, I asked on Twitter, what should I ask Colin? And he said, you ask him what his name is. So that was really valuable for the interview.
I'm glad I could get that sorted out.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot one more time, and I hope to speak to you soon, Colin. Really inspiring.
Totally. Hey, thanks again for having me.
This was the interview with Colin Wright. Thanks for listening. I hope you get value out of it.